Liang Chenyue's 10,000-year career of fast-wearing and working as a black laborer was liberated after her love-brain system disappeared. Before adapting to this sudden change, the domineering emperor and the affectionate general were about to have a deep love affair with little white flower, and even kicked her into the water, becoming the vicious female supporting role of that big grudge. The sadistic love of three people dragged the fourth person into the game to endure hardship. It's great, sharpening the knife with great skill. The good news is, she has turned over and made the decision. The bad news is, the timeline will restart as soon as it reaches 3 years. On the 35th reboot, the male protagonist spoke arrogantly for the female protagonist, "I have already given you what you want. Don't think of anything else that shouldn't be done." Liang Chenyue tucked herself in a blanket and said, "Okay, good night Makabaka." The culprit who caused her to enter the palace, male heir, passed through the palace. Liang Chenyue. Instead of reflecting on oneself, it's better to attack others. Left hand burlap bag, right hand rolling pin, stand up and send male sophomore 1 month unpaid sick leave. The male lead and female lead staged a famous scene of grievances in front of her without saying anything. Liang Chenyue. Respect others' choices and mock their fate. She directly pushed the waves to the mark. Bring her blessings and lock it up. On the 36th reboot, the villain who was saved by the female protagonist's pancake when he was young should like the female protagonist. Liang Chenyue. Spread pancakes, roll scallions, and offer them a token of love. The villainous demon took a bite of the pancake roll and scallions, gently stroking the female lead's face and saying, "Little thing, you must be good." The male lead and the second male lead are willing to bear all the hardships and punishments for the female lead in order to save her. Liang Chenyue. 2 new people from Nanfeng Pavilion, please come inside. Well, the days of unlimited restarts are also quite enjoyable. Who said they would fall into panic and helplessness? Is she super happy? Keywords of the novel. The wise do not enter the river of love, the noble concubine does not speak of martial arts without pop-ups, the wise do not enter the river of love, the noble concubine does not speak of martial arts. Download the full text of the text, the wise do not enter the river of love, and the noble concubine does not speak of martial arts. Read the latest chapters on martial arts. Chapter 1. Love Brain Dies Ye. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Love Brain Dies Ye. Sister you, thank you for taking care of me during this time. On her clean face, her features were quite delicate, with every frown and cluster showcasing her innocence and beauty. The little white rabbit-like girl blushed and thanked the woman who was half her head higher than her, then quickly threw herself into the embrace of the man who had been waiting for her behind her. But after thinking about it, I still don't want to be separated from the emperor. Bai Jiaojiao's heart skipped a beat and her hand pressed against the woman's chest. Although there have been many unpleasant experiences, the emperor, he still loves me. Sister you will bless me, won't you? Of course. The woman named Liang Chenyue and nodded with a smile, looking at the two in front of her as if they were a perfect match. Bai Jiaojiao followed Emperor Xiao Jingrong's turn and left. Liang Chenyue was deeply moved and lifted her hands to gently remove 2 hairpins from her head. A pair of pitiful and affectionate people, separated and united, eventually became a married couple. Turning the pearl on the hairpin stick wrapped around the dagger fell off in response. Her hands moved cleanly and her face wore a comforting and moving smile. Love Brain, die for me. The dagger pierced directly into her heart, and the joy on Bai Jiaojiao's face instantly turned into shock, and her life was frozen in this moment. Jiao Jiao. Xiao Jingrong's expression was flustered, his voice was excited, and he couldn't believe it. Accompanied by anger, he said, "What have you done to Jiao Jiao?" Xiao Jingrong, who drafted a horse. You also die for me. Without hesitation, Liang Chenyue stabbed another dagger into Xiao Jingrong's heart. Fresh blood splattered all over her face, and Liang Chenyue put away her dagger and reinserted it back into her hair. Watching her lover turn into a desperate mandarin duck, she came to a conclusion. With this reboot, she shouldn't be playing games that save her love brain with a flood of Madonna's heart. Are you okay now? Did you receive the retribution? After working hard to retrieve the female protagonist from the wolf's den, she took care of her and loved her to prevent her from being misunderstood, having a miscarriage, and eating wild vegetables by the male protagonist. Now that retribution has come, the female protagonist once again feels that the male protagonist is her true love. The ground was in chaos, and the world before her gradually began to blur. Liang Chenyue had already become calm, so suddenly being in a void was not a new thing for her. She killed the male and female protagonists of this world, and it was already something she expected the world to restart. Fengtian Qingyun, the emperor's decree said, the Liang family has a daughter named Chenyue, who is dignified, respectful, virtuous, and virtuous. Xiao was conferred the title of noble consort and honored with this honor. Another familiar voice sounded, and Liang Chenyue didn't feel any discomfort. Counting down, this was already the 35th restart of the world. She glanced at the emperor standing next to her, and the last moment, he was stabbed to death in the heart by his own hairpin. At this moment, she still felt a bit tempted to stab him. But when the male protagonist was killed, the world would restart again. Liang Chenyue didn't want to waste time in order to relieve her anger. In an instant, she tidied up her spirits and placed her hand in Xiao Jingrong's palm, completing the coronation ceremony step by step. After all, who would waste time on dog men and women? Having suffered from Madonna's disease once is enough, playing the game of saving the love brain once is enough. Since the world is destined to restart, it's better to spend precious time on her entertainment. As for the terror of infinite loops, helpless. Weak. Sorry, there's nothing like that. Is she having a super happy time? Except for the last time I restarted and committed Madonna disease, after all, I haven't played a save series instance before, and my mind is really a bit lacking. I won't do it again next time. Although this place restarts every 3 years, Liang Chenyue still enjoys her life here for no special reason, mainly because her system suddenly lost after coming to this world. She was once a member of many fast-wearing armies, but fast-wearing life was not as beautiful as she imagined. The tasks issued by the system were absolute, without her bargaining power, let alone so-called fairness and right or wrong. She felt like returning to a feudal slave society, becoming the one manipulated by the system. It's not that she hasn't fought or resisted before, but she died before becoming one of the fast-wearing armies. She died in the year when she had just graduated and had unlimited expectations and beauty for her future life. Shuttling through various small worlds to complete tasks became the only opportunity for her to preserve her consciousness and live. She thought this was also a disguised enjoyment of her life, but instead, it was the beginning of sinking into hell. Thinking about it, she still has a bit of anger. Her system is a pure love brain, and she particularly likes male and female leads who use their mouths as decorations. If misunderstood, they just don't explain. The way the female lead retaliates against the male lead is through the kind of literature that the male lead regrets when she dies, as well as the sweet and spoiled wife literature that is sick but favored. Save your life. They all seem to rely on the defense in her opinion. Therefore, the task assigned to her by this system is either to play the role of a weak and pitiful mistress, or to be a malicious supporting woman with a single-minded mind, all of which are in the above 2 types of literature. If you don't do the task, you will be punished by thunder. If you are chopped too many times, your soul will be shattered and it will no longer exist in this world. Liang Chenyue was unwilling. Although her life had fallen into darkness, she did not want to disappear from the world. Therefore, she chose to endure the dual physical and spiritual torment brought to her by one world after another, and finally waited for a turning point in her life. The system is lost. She's liberated. She's free now. Compared to the dark and endless love-brain life of the past, can it be considered a thing for the small world to restart as soon as the 3-year period arrives? Can this affect her to enjoy her life of making her own decisions? This cannot be done. Liang Chenyue accepted this reality with peace of mind. Although she also understood that the restart of the small world must be related to system loss, she would rather be stuck here all the time than have the Guba system come back and continue to torment her. After all, the plot of being misunderstood, having a miscarriage, having a whole family killed, being physically and mentally abused, and finally having to reconcile with the male lead can be accepted by the female lead, but she cannot bear it. All parties have good conditions, but they insist on liking the male lead, being crazy about him, hitting a big wall for him, using all means to frame the female lead for him, and ultimately dying tragically. The female lead cannot bear it, and she cannot bear it even more. What's wrong with maintaining the status quo unless there's a way to bypass the recovery system and keep time moving forward? I have already given you what you want. Take it easy and don't think about anything else that shouldn't be. Xiao Jingrong endured for a day before finally saying these words before going to bed. Okay. Liang Chenyue had already gone to bed and was ready to fall asleep. Good night, Makabaka. After speaking, she tucked herself in a small blanket. Xiao Jingrong was furious for a moment, and his majesty as the emperor was completely ignored. He immediately said, "You are reckless. Is this the rule taught by your Liang family?" But Liang Chenyue is tired, and she is just a malicious female supporting actress. The Liang family is a small villainous manufacturer in the book, according to the rules. Where are there any rules? Oh, good night, damn it. It can't be said that there is no such thing. The rule of villains is to make the protagonist unhappy, right? She's super obedient. Notice before viewing. 1. This article is not a fast-paced article. Fast-paced is just a background, with a full range of units. It is an alternative and humorous article by the female protagonist. The female protagonist criticizes her crazily, has a villainous style, and is a bit of a sea king. She has golden fingers, and many people are ambiguous but do not buy stocks. The female protagonist is clear-headed and beautiful, and will use men's plans. There is an official allocation that has been determined but will not be changed. The female protagonist will not be influenced by the female protagonist's decision, and the number of scenes will be huge. It will be indicated that there is no spoiler here. 1v1 body is both pure, 1v1 spiritual female is not male pure, and any malignant behavior of the protagonist should not be learned or imitated in reality. Improper behavior in the book can be a source of happiness for you, but it's not a big deal to glorify and worship the female protagonist. Wrong is wrong. This article lacks the plot of the female protagonist committing evil and blindly glorifying and worshipping from the perspective of others. 2. Do not enter X3 if you do not like it. Any article has its audience, and there are people who don't like it. Not liking it doesn't mean it should disappear. Wishing every reader the most satisfying article, welcome to criticize the setting, welcome to question the plot, and refuse to insult. If you don't understand everything, you will think you are right to criticize, and anyone else will be broken. Civilized comments and rational discussions. Please leave a clean comment area for readers who like this article. 3. It would be even better if there are recommended tickets and comments from babies to support it, which will make me happy for a long time. QAQ. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Empress Dowager, she is unreasonable. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Empress Dowager, she is unreasonable. Xiao Jingrong was used to being flattered by others. He had never been so angry. Even though he seemed to be about to enter the cold palace, he was stopped by the eunuch beside him as he reached out to Liang Chenyue. Your Majesty, think twice. The eunuch frowned and said, no matter how you view the Empress Dowager, you have made up your mind to prioritize the past court. The Liang family, also known as the mother race of malicious female partners, is a powerful presence that can hold on to the emperor in the early and middle stages. It can be said that one hand covers the sky, which Xiao Jingrong cannot afford to offend now. This reminder also brought back Xiao Jingrong's rationality. As a result, he left Kunlun Palace without saying anything and went back to Jinluan Hall to sleep alone. Liang Chenyue slept soundly until dawn, and when she woke up in the morning, the palace was quiet. Everyone in the palace looked at each other cautiously, afraid that she would be thrown away and punished for stepping into the palace with her left foot. This is also normal, after all, she was originally a spoiled and difficult to deal with. She used to have some temper, which was nothing in feudal society. After falling in love with the male lead, she became even more bad-tempered, with unpredictable temperaments and extremely cruel hearts, becoming a tool to highlight the female lead's innocence and weakness. Who can we show each other with their faces pulled together? But Liang Chenyue didn't like it. She just didn't like the suppressed atmosphere under the abusive text. Where is the spirit and spirit? Let it shine. As a servant in this palace, who can we show each one's heads down and dejected? Waiting for news to spread and make people laugh. Laugh, give her a smile. She just likes to watch people laugh. Upon hearing this, the palace attendants worked hard to squeeze out smiles one by one, which made Liang Chenyue feel satisfied. After admiring all the palace attendants, she nodded in satisfaction and said, "That's right. Being a servant around this palace is absolutely not allowed to lose in terms of aura. Whoever loses face outside and loses face with Kunlun Palace is rebelling against this master of this palace. Right or wrong? Those are not important to Liang Chenyue. The three perspectives of the small world we are in now have long been distorted enough, why bother to make ourselves unhappy again? Madam, it's time to go to Kunlun Palace to pay respects. Don't worry." Liang Chenyue curved her eyebrows and eyes and slowly ate the shrimp congee in front of her. The salty taste spread between her lips and teeth, and she could not see the worry in the eyes of many palace people. Going to the central palace to pay respects late is bound to offend people, but Liang Chenyue turned a deaf ear and continued to eat her breakfast. The last time she restarted, she accidentally felt a surge of longing for the Virgin Mary. While saving the protagonist by Xiao from the sea of suffering, she also established good relationships with the concubines in the harem and taught them the beauty of independent women, leading them to discover the beauty of this world and broaden their horizons, no longer limited to love. Biting the last shrimp in her mouth, Liang Chenyue's face suddenly turned gloomy and terrifying. Eating a pit leads to gaining wisdom, and now I deeply understand that having a heart-wrenching love brain can ruin one's life. In this world, there is more than just a female protagonist with a love brain. Putting aside her helpfulness complex and mocking the fate of others, since everyone loves to suffer from love so much, she has nothing to say except respect and blessings. After breakfast, she casually touched 2 peach pastries from the table. It was already time to say hello, but she still had no intention of moving her buttocks. The Kunlun Palace couldn't hold back any longer. A group of people came with a fierce momentum, as if they wanted to unload the person's 8 pieces on the spot. A few people who looked big and rough were about to attack Liang Chenyue and escort her to Kunlun Palace. Shoo! Liang Chenyue looked disdainful in her eyes, her anger still lingering. It's not surprising that the outside world always says that Empress is not worthy of a small belly and chicken intestines, and she doesn't have the appearance that a mother of a country should have. Now, this lynching is just an attempt to harm our palace. As the saying goes, instead of reflecting on oneself, it's better to attack others. Just stabbing each male and female lead, how can she relieve her anger? Bold. The noble consort is disrespectful to the Empress, come quickly. Pop. The situation was fierce on the other side, and she stood up without hesitation. She slapped the person's words with a big mouth, and on the spot, it was shameless to be unreasonable, but it was really satisfying. The Xie family is not even worthy of lifting their shoes in front of the Liang family, but some people think their status is valuable and stable. Everyone is in the same boat. Auntie, do you think it's ridiculous? She said this to the person she had knocked to the ground, her words filled with sarcasm. As for her respect for the palace. Sorry, there wasn't any at all. Half of the aunt's face was fiery, and she looked at Liang Chenyue with disbelief. She was beaten for handling affairs for the Empress, which was equivalent to hitting the Empress's face. It was unreasonable for a mere noble consort to act so recklessly. What are you all staring at? Auntie pretended to get up from the ground. Your Majesty is disrespectful to the Empress. Liang Chenyue raised her hand and slapped the other half of her face as well. Pop. Another crisp sound made Liang Chenyue burst into laughter as she listened to the sound like a firecracker. It reminded her that when she first arrived, the system suddenly disappeared, and she was so happy. She hurriedly shouted to the palace to set off firecrackers for her to celebrate. In thought, Liang Chenyue became more energetic. She bent down and arched from left to right. This addiction to listening to the sound was so addictive that she couldn't bear it. Ah! The aunt was so dizzy and disoriented that she couldn't react in time. Her body honestly shouted out in pain. The seemingly weak noble consort is merciless when it comes to fighting people. What these palace people are unaware of is that every time Liang Chenyue restarts, she maintains a habit of using points to fully increase her strength and physique. After all, countless years of fast ship life have saved her a huge wealth of points, which is now almost so fast that she can hardly use it up, making Liang Chenyue very happy in these years. Not only the people sent by the Empress are dumbfounded, but the servants of the entire Kunlun Palace are also dumbfounded. The people around the Empress represent the Empress in every word and action. Who wants Liang Chenyue to make mistakes and not forgive others? Are you all waiting for this palace to take action on your own? A person arched from left to right, but the sound was still a bit weak. Liang Chenyue was not satisfied, and she also felt pain from hitting her upper hand. She immediately looked around and scanned towards the palace people in her own palace, saying, "Why don't you shoot all the way out of this palace?" The people of FUL Palace were all dumbfounded upon hearing these words, each showing an incredulous look. The people of Kunlun Palace were not much better either. But if it were Liang Chenyue who first came to this world, perhaps he would still be willing to follow the rules of the palace and play. Now. She's here to retaliate against everyone now. Suddenly, a bag of silver ingots was pulled out of her arms and placed on the table like a magic trick. Liang Chenyue calmly sat down on the chair and said, "There is no need for timid servants in this Kunlun Palace. There are cowardly people who starve to death, brave people who persevere to death, and fearless people everywhere. Soon, some eunuchs dare to take this head and hit people." End of this chapter. Chapter 3, regardless of his right or wrong, is to drag. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3, regardless of his right or wrong, is to drag, Your Majesty. You are so disorganized. Disdainful of the Empress. The people of FUL Palace are clamoring. Liang Chenyue pretended to be surprised and said, "You're really smart. You've seen all of this." Several palace attendants in FUL Palace were almost so angry that they vomited blood. Liang Chenyue was still immersed in the crackling sound of slaps, and at the same time began to distribute silver to the most ruthless eunuch in her palace. "It's so loud, I love it." As soon as she distributed the money, the others immediately became competitive and started to be more ruthless one by one. The people from FUL Palace were outnumbered, and soon they were all thrown out. Before closing the door, Liang Chenyue didn't forget to nibble on the peach pastry while facing out and say, "Take your time. Welcome back next time." The people in FUL Palace almost died of anger. As usual, new concubines should go to FUL Palace to pay their respects the next day. At that time, Liang Chenyue had not seen anyone for a long time, and it was only natural for the Empress to punish the concubines. Since ancient times, she has never seen Liang Chenyue act so recklessly. How dare she fight back on the spot? The words in that mouth are even more infuriating. Empress. The two palace maids were both brought into the palace in their original bodies. After this incident, one of them hesitated and approached, saying, "I'm afraid this is going to provoke the Empress." Liang Chenyue suddenly reached out her hand and covered her mouth with a snap, interrupting the casting and saying, "All right, don't say anything more. She doesn't like to hear this. Anger the queen. Will she be afraid? She has nothing to say about anything else that doesn't follow the rules and doesn't understand hierarchy, but why is the queen angry with her? This is a mindless and sadistic novel, and the Empress is much worse off than her original background. It's just that the Empress and the Empress Dowager both come from the Xiao family, but how do the Xiao family compare to the Liang family? The book is set so recklessly, and then why does she have to be careful not to speak out? It's over no matter how exciting it is. Empress. Another palace maid also knelt down with a hesitant expression, saying, "You have always hoped to leave a good impression in front of the emperor, and the master has also reminded you. I'll give you two choices." Liang Chenyue looked at her with a smile. "First, listen to me, and second, eat my big mouth." Born from a good family background, with a high spirit, and grown up with the arrogance of their parents, if they really get angry and hit someone, their fate can also be imagined. Both palace maids remained silent. Little life is even more important. Liang Chenyue looked at the two of them with satisfaction, and then couldn't help but say something she would say almost every time she restarted. "As someone who serves our palace as a servant, we must not lose our face outside. Regardless of his right or wrong, he just needs to pull. Otherwise, how can she justify the malicious female supporting role she is currently using?" Early in the morning, Liang Chenyue happily went back and threw the money bag in her hand to the palace maids, asking them to distribute it to the palace maids who had just fought hard. "The peach pastry I just made today is good. Go get some more for our palace." As for the incident of just beating the Empress, Liang Chenyue didn't take it to heart at all. After all, strictly speaking, the position of the former imperial concubine was forced by the Liang family to be given by Xiao Jingrong. At this moment, in the situation of the previous dynasty, the emperor has to make concessions. Why should the Empress punish her? It's just so unreasonable. Go back and find a comfortable position to rest in. She didn't feel guilty or blush at all because she did something wrong, but instead continued to sew the peach pastry with a good self-feeling. Empress. The palace maid Xiang couldn't help but ask as she pounded her legs, "Your behavior today may make the Empress furious." Liang Chenyue glanced down at her and said, "Don't ask questions that you know you're asking. It's annoying. The queen naturally needs to be angry." As she initially said, Empress Xiao is just a tough grassroots with a small capacity and shallow city. If it weren't for the Empress Dowager's strong support, she wouldn't have been able to sit in the position of Empress. "Yes, I understand my mistake." Xiang didn't dare to provoke her, so she said cautiously, "I'm just afraid that the Empress will come and trouble you again." Looking up, she thought about the plot and sneered, "It's impossible." Everyone was confused when they heard it, and it was evident that they had recognized the appearance of the morning rise. How could they dare to offend Liang Chenyue, a noblewoman with a huge family background, again? On the other side of the FUL palace, the roof almost overturned, and a group of concubines knelt on the ground, trembling with their heads lowered. The Empress stood in front of the main throne in anger, gritting her teeth and her eyes turning red. She smashed the teacup at hand, and her angry voice kept saying, "You're reckless. She's reckless." Such a loss of composure is not uncommon in the harem. Many concubines in the harem are dissatisfied, but dare not say much. Although the Xiao family does not have much real power, there is an Empress Dowager in charge, and the Empress Dowager personally selects her from the clan. in order for the Xie family's daughter to seize the Empress position and ensure that the Empress's position always belongs to her own family. Someone. Go and take that slut down from our palace immediately. The Empress blushed with her eyes, as if she wanted to eat someone alive. Since becoming Empress, no one has ever given her such embarrassment, Liang Chenyue, this slut. But it's just a noble consort, who committed such a crime below. As long as you enter this Phoenix Palace, you will lose half of your life if you don't die. The other concubines dare not say a word more. With the support of the Empress Dowager, the Empress is as proud as a rooster with its tail raised. Her favorite thing is to put on her queen's airs in front of her concubines. This is the first time someone has shown such disrespect to her, and anger is inevitable. There have been similar situations before, such as when a young palace maid was given a second glance by Xiao Jingrong, or when a concubine spoke to Xiao Jingrong, the Empress would surely torture Fatsi severely. The Empress Dowager also hoped that the Empress would give birth to a legitimate son first. For such a jealous Empress, she would occasionally beat and turn a blind eye. Unfortunately, this time the Queen will kick the iron plate. The group of people who were heading towards Kunlun Palace in a fierce manner were stopped halfway by the Empress Dowager's order, and even sent the nearby maids to scold the Empress. In front of all the concubines, they scolded her for being impolite and calculating with them, and even compensated Kunlun Palace. The Empress Dowager is a relative of the Empress Dowager's family. Why would the Empress Dowager still turn to you this time? Looking at the dazzling array of good things, Yingxiang's eyes were full of confusion. Liang Chenyue looked at these pearl hairpins and emerald jade with joy, trying them on herself just like before. Hi. She's too beautiful, isn't she? How come everyone looks so good with her? Isn't it natural to face this palace? Liang Chenyue rolled her eyes lightly, feeling a bit resentful towards the girl. Please, you are the closest palace maid to the most vicious female supporting character in the entire text. Give her some strength. What is the original existence? That's more like the existence of the author's own daughter than the female lead by Xiao. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Your face is very elastic. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Your face is very elastic. Not only was it not unexpected, but Liang Chenyue's face was filled with smiles, which could be said to be completely within her expectations. There's no surprise at all, the Empress Dowager also said, if you're feeling bored, if you don't let go take a walk in Shoan Palace. The person who came almost smiled with a slit in their eyes, looking extremely flattering. Alright, I understand. Liang Chenyue didn't even glance at him and waved her hand at him, indicating that he could step back. The eunuch was also witty and immediately said, I'm leaving. Liang Chenyue lazily looked at the floral bracelet in her hand and casually placed it on her wrist to observe. She smiled and couldn't help but show a hint of contempt in her eyes. In this world, no matter how close you are, there is no son who can kiss you. Look, it's so ridiculous. The servant was a bit confused when he heard it, but it seemed like he understood something. Xiao Jingrong can't afford to offend the Liang family now, so naturally everything matters to the Liang family. If Liang Chenyue wants to become a noble concubine, she needs to prepare a grand coronation ceremony. Liang Chenyue is not happy, and those who did not make mistakes should also bow down and apologize to her. Of course, the Empress Dowager is not satisfied with Liang Chenyue's behavior below this level, but offending the Liang family. The anger of the Liang family is far beyond the control of a Xie family. The Empress Dowager was angry, but she couldn't directly punish Liang Chenyue according to the palace rules. She could only vent all her anger on the Empress, complaining that she didn't understand the Emperor's hard work, that she was impatient and couldn't tolerate others, and that she didn't have any Empress-like demeanor. For several days in a row, Liang Chenyue had a wonderful little life. There was no need to pay respects, and no one dared to neglect her clothing, food, housing, and transportation. She rewarded her with a lot of silver, and the palace maids and eunuchs were all trying to find ways to make her happy. Liang Chenyue's eyebrows and eyes curved, and she was indeed very happy. She was willing to live such a prosperous life for a lifetime. I really can't figure out why there are people in this world who don't want to indulge in extravagant wealth and then run off to have a trash romance with the man below them. Madam, Ning Jiayu from Qianghua Palace is seeking an audience. Tell her to get lost. Liang Chenyue didn't even open her eyelids for a moment. In the past few days, this was already the 8th one, and everyone demanded to see her, showing a flattering and pleasing demeanor, constantly following her lead. She didn't want to deal with the small trick of forming factions in the harem. For the sake of those little favors and pets, each one was fighting with a red face and red ears. For Liang Chenyue, it's better to love a dog emperor than to love her. She can at least protect everyone's clothing, food, housing, and transportation, and even stick to beautiful sisters one by one. But this will also remind Liang Chenyue of the past restart. Ning Jiayu, who came to be her lackey last time, dared to stab Xiao Jingrong in the back for the little leftover cold rice she had left after loving by Jiao. She would only have sex with these romantic brains unless her brain was abnormal. The little palace maid politely brought the words to Ning Jiayu and bowed, saying, "Jiayu, please go back. The Empress has instructed not to see anyone." Ning Jiayu wore a thin sweat on her forehead. After years in the palace, she had already had enough to endure hardship under the Empress's command. Now, she finally had someone to rely on. She didn't want to go back and spoke with these urgent words. "Could you please convey this message to this palace again? As long as the noble consort is willing to see me, she will definitely not be disappointed." The little palace maid felt a bit helpless and still brought the words to Liang Chenyue without changing them. Liang Chenyue suddenly opened her eyes and rushed out of Kunlun Palace with a thunderous force. At the moment she met Ning Jiayu, she could see her excitement with her naked eyes. Then, without hesitation, a big pussy was thrown onto Ning Jiayu's highly anticipated face. Pop! That palm just makes people feel like it resounds through the sky. Ning Jiayu stumbled backwards after being beaten, covered in her face and supported by servants. She saw Liang Chenyue with a bright and charming smile on her face. "You have a tender and elastic face," she said. "I come here every day to slap you a few times, and I promise not to disappoint you." "Hi, the face of this concubine in the harem is different from that of a servant. She is truly young and well-maintained, tender and smooth. After hitting her, I only felt that the person who hit her before had a skin that scraped like an old tree skin." Liang Chenyue admitted that the touch and sound made her truly moved. "Please make sure to come to Kunlun Palace every day to be beaten. There aren't many faces with good tactile sensation and loud voice. You can't have someone snatch it." Ning Jiayu's face was burning with pain. She didn't expect to not only run into a wall today, but also be humiliated by others. The noble concubine even slapped people for fun. Although she wanted to join in, she didn't even want to lose face for it. Thinking about it, her eyes couldn't help but turn red. Ning Jiayu ran away with the palace attendants in a mixture of shame and anger. "Hey! Ning Jiayu, don't you really think about it?" Liang Chenyue panicked and quickly reached out to chase after her for 2 steps. "I really won't let you down." She had already decided that she would give whatever Ning Jiayu wanted. Seeing people running so fast, Liang Chenyue's mouth sank, feeling both aggrieved and sad. Not only did the Liang family have a big business, but she also had a system store. Without system control, she can buy anything from the system store at will. What kind of bug-like props does she not have? Why can't Ning Jiayu consider her proposal? What a win-win situation. Xiang stood aside and silently chose to shut up. "Don't speak, save your life." Liang Chenyue was very distressed. She thought she had discovered new fun again, but how could she expect Ning Jiayu to be so stingy? She refused to agree to such favorable conditions. She is not a salted fish who is content with the status quo and likes to lie down and never sit. On the contrary, sometimes she feels uncomfortable even when she is too free. She is keen on doing something that she thinks is interesting. She used to do this when she first entered the workplace, but this habit still exists today. But now, the finally found joy has run away, and Liang Chenyue is very unhappy. She needs to find another fun to make up for her injured little soul. Madam, please go back. The emperor is busy with government affairs and won't see you today. Hey! Wang Gong Gong. You said there's something important in this palace that needs to see the emperor. The queen chased after her, her steps shaking the pearl hairpin on her head a bit messy, and her voice was full of impatience. This palace really has something to see the emperor. Empress, it's not that I haven't been able to pass it on, Wang Dihai couldn't help but sigh and said with a bitter face. The emperor is really busy with government affairs and doesn't have time to see Empress. Please don't make things difficult for us as servants. When this noise gets louder and disturbs the emperor, he will definitely be angry. Anger seemed to have pinched the Empress's lifeline, and she immediately silenced her. Only then did Wang Dihai have the time to withdraw and hide, as if he had returned to the Golden One Hall. Empress. The big palace maid beside her still had swollen red marks on her face. Let's go back. But as soon as these words fell, the Empress gave her a fierce look and angrily raised her hand, slapping her again. Hong Yu, do you even think that this palace deserves to be bullied by that slut? End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Your auntie is well, now her. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Your auntie is well, now her. This slap is enough to show the palace residents of the Golden One Palace a wonderful scene. It's not uncommon for the Empress to punish the palace maids for a long time, but unfortunately, Hong Yu is the Grand Palace maid of FUL One Palace, and among the servants, she can also be considered a superior. So what? Isn't it unlucky to follow such a master? I dare not. Hong Yu quickly knelt down with a thud and said, I'm just worried that the situation might escalate. If the emperor misunderstands the Empress again, it won't be worth the loss. The Empress admires the emperor and is jealous of all the women in the harem because of him. Naturally, the emperor, who is already indifferent to her, will detest herself. She is the Empress of Xiao Jingrong, his wife. No one in this harem should cross over her, let alone compete with her for the emperor's favor. Empress. Hong Yu's mind spun rapidly and she began to suggest to the Empress, why don't we go to Shoan Palace again? The Empress sneered at the words and said, on that day in front of so many people, I was scolded in front of you. Now you have come up with an idea to persuade me to go to Shoan Palace again. Are you asking me to watch the Empress Dowager face that slut again? With such brainless words, Hong Yu was so scared that her soul was almost gone. She quickly stopped and said, Madam, calm down. I don't mean that. What do you mean, then? Hong Yu knelt closer and said, Madam, the Empress Dowager has been well-intentioned. Now that the emperor needs the Liang family in the previous dynasty, it's just playing tricks on that noble concubine. You are a relative of the Empress Dowager and also the Empress Dowager of the motherland. How could the Empress Dowager not hurt you so much for you? This palace is the queen, and she is the concubine. How can she commit the following offenses? The Empress was reluctant in her heart and was about to leave. No matter how strong the Liang family was, they were also ministers. She was the Empress, the wife standing beside the emperor, and a presence above all people. No matter how powerful, that lowly person could disrespect her. Empress, endure the calm waves for a while. Hong Yu quickly got up and chased after her. Think about when the Empress Dowager treated you badly in the past. This must have happened for a reason. Your relationship with the Empress Dowager is very close. If you have a dispute with her at this moment, how will she be willing to protect you again in the future? After speaking so eloquently, the Empress's anger was barely dispelled. She asked, "So if I go to the Empress Dowager's place now and dress softly, will that slut be less arrogant in the future? I guarantee with my life that this day will surely come. You will always be the queen." The smile returned to the Empress's eyebrows and eyes, and then she quietly let Hong Yu follow her to Shoan Palace. "Hi, Empress." In the main hall, Liang Chenyue intimately held the Empress Dowager's arm and smiled as she greeted the Empress, who looked like a cute and innocent girl. The sound of the ant from the queen's mouth had not yet been fully shouted out, and she was instantly stuck in place like a thorn in her throat. Liang Chenyue blinked at her. "Your aunt is very good, it's her now. Empress Dowager, would you say, is this a good idea for me?" She had a well-behaved attitude, holding the processed fruit in her hands and offering it, with a smile in her eyes and a light in her eyes. The look of being kind to her from the bottom of her heart was something that no one could resist. Okay. The Empress Dowager was indeed happy and happily ate the fruit presented by Liang Chenyue. "Good child, you really have a heart. Let's do as you say." "Thank you very much, Empress Dowager." Liang Chenyue's eyebrows and eyes curved. "I know that Empress Dowager loves me the most." This time, the Empress almost died of anger. In front of the Empress Dowager, the Empress dared not be too presumptuous, just stared at Liang Chenyue with a pair of eyes fixed on her. The Empress and the Empress Dowager do indeed come from the same family, but the Empress Dowager's father is not the Empress Dowager's biological younger brother. They come from the same family, but they are not of the same lineage. The Empress Dowager's father can only be considered as the Empress Dowager's biological younger brother. Although it does not prevent the Empress Dowager from calling her aunt, they are not so close. Empress. The Empress Dowager felt a bit resentful when she saw the Empress's inability to hide things. "The AI family asked you to reflect in the palace. What are you doing?" "Auntie." The Empress suddenly felt aggrieved in her heart, but even if she was angry, she only dared to be angry with the Empress Dowager behind her back, and definitely dared not come too far behind. Liang Chenyue sat beside the Empress Dowager, her innocent eyes as innocent as they were. "Empress Dowager, please forgive Empress Dowager." Empress Dowager must have come to pay her respects. The Empress gritted her teeth in anger and knelt down on the ground, saying, "I don't need you to explain anything hypocritically here in this palace." Empress. The Empress Dowager furrowed her brows, and upon hearing these words, she immediately felt displeased. She repeatedly reminded the Empress that since she was sitting in this position, she should remain calm. However, even though she had been in the palace for several years, she still looked like this. "I really don't know how to consider others at all. Among the new generation of girls in the Xie family, there are many ambitious people, but only the Empress is easy to handle. Unfortunately, she can't hold back her anger and hide things. No matter how much the Empress Dowager beats her over the years, she doesn't see any progress." Liang Chenyue's eyes were full of innocence, and she was exploiting the gap between the two of them. Although the Empress is obedient, she is really foolish and easily impatient. With such a temperament, even without Bai Jiaojiao in his heart, Xiao Jingrong, who is a dog emperor, would not look up to the Empress. "The Empress Dowager, calm down. The Empress Dowager is already so pitiful. Please forgive her," Liang Chenyue said coquettishly, leaning against the Empress Dowager. "I will definitely help the Empress Dowager fulfill her wish. Let this entire harem become her experimental mouse." As she was speaking, a figure cautiously walked over with tea. As she passed by the Empress, she was not sure if she had been startled. In an instant, all the teacups in her hand fell to the ground, and the hot tea splashed onto her body. She stood up from the ground and angrily slapped the person in the face. "Damn it! Are you trying to burn this palace to death?" The girl fell to the ground in a weak voice, her expression full of fear, and she knelt down repeatedly to apologize. My daughter didn't mean it. Please make amends to the Empress. Here we go, the female lead by Xiao. Liang Chenyue raised her eyebrows slightly and said, "Oh, isn't this Miss Bai? Why is she with the Empress Dowager?" As a woman holding the script, she certainly knows why Bai Xiao is here, but she deliberately mentioned it that way. This despicable thing, she still wants to cut her love brain once again. You can't go down yet. The Empress Dowager didn't give her any good face, so she just asked her grandmother to take her down. The nanny was also impolite, just like scolding a little girl who had just entered the palace. She twisted Bai Xiao's ear and carried the person out. No matter how much Bai Xiao begged for mercy, she was not polite. Upon seeing this, Liang Chenyue smiled and said, "The Empress Dowager must still have something to say to the Empress Dowager. So, I will leave first. I will sort out what I said today and then use it for the Empress Dowager's purpose." End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Impulse is the Devil. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Impulse is the Devil. Outside the palace, Bai Xiao was pinned to the ground by the palace attendants, staring at her and kneeling. The palace attendants looked at her contemptuously, not even looking at her. His eyes turned red, half of his face turned red, and one ear was twisted and swollen, making him extremely helpless. TSK, it's really pitiful. Liang Chenyue slowly swayed her servant to Bai Xiao and reached out to pinch her face, lifting it up. "Bai sister, isn't life in the palace easy?" Bai Xiao's figure trembled as she dared not look directly at Liang Chenyue. "Sister, it's all my fault." Bai Xiao's face was filled with guilt. "It's all because of me that you entered the palace. What's wrong with you?" Before saying this, Liang Chenyue couldn't help taking a deep breath. The female partner had a relationship with the female leader when she entered the palace. She gently reached out and patted her injured half-face and said, "You are his mother, stupid and cheap. Do you think your long mouth is useful for eating? When it's time to speak, you should be mute. When it's not your business, you should forcefully grab onto your body. Bai Xiao, this palace really admires you." Her words were unpleasant and sharp, as if she was going to peel off a layer of skin. "You said, how could there be someone like you in this world who is so inclined to harm and avoid benefits? Sister, Bai Xiao's face blushed with embarrassment as she scolded her, and she stuttered even more. Liang Chenyue walked so fast that she was afraid she would slow down and couldn't help but kill this suffocating female protagonist. After all, the experiment is still in the planning stage, and she doesn't want to experience the insurmountable opening plot again because she killed the female lead. "Empress Dowager, you shouldn't have spoken to Miss Bai like that just now. After all, she is a guest of the Emperor. If the Emperor intervenes, it may be detrimental to your reputation. The eunuchs in this palace often have a duck throat, and it is rare for them to have such an indistinguishable and beautiful sound." Liang Chenyue raised her eyes and looked at the eunuch who suddenly blocked the way in front of her. Naturally, she knew this person. Xiao Yuan. She called out the eunuch's name and smiled softly, "Come here." Xiao Yuan raised his eyes, revealing his lifeless and delicate face. "Eat shit. If you can't speak, shut up this palace." She raised her hand and gave this handsome eunuch a physical and mental dual attack. "Big pussy. Hurry up and feel heartbroken in front of her, don't you? Empress, make amends." Xiao Yuan immediately knelt on the ground. "I just don't want you to lose your holy heart." Xiao Yuan knew that the female supporting character liked the Emperor, which was true. He advised the female supporting character to leave a good impression, but only if Liang Chenyue was unaware of the plot. Xiao Yuanyue is the most beloved supporting role in this book. He is capable, loyal and kind. Everyone in the palace bullies the female leader. He can't bear it, and he always secretly helps in his ability. The female protagonist is also grateful to him. The two of them have some cross-class friendship, but the difference is that Zhao Yuan is a servant assigned to the original protagonist. He always puts the original protagonist first, whether to betray the original protagonist to fulfill his heart or ignore his loyalty to the original protagonist. He hesitated all the way, and finally helped the female protagonist kill the original protagonist, and then sacrificed himself for the original protagonist. Looking at it from a different perspective, a servant had an inappropriate mindset. He insisted on being loyal to his master, but in the end, he personally killed his master and died for it. His loyalty is both genuine and hypocritical. And the act of being buried, is it loyalty? Still feeling guilty. Has he truly become loyal to his original master and his own master? In that era of equality for all, justice and kindness were what people valued. This is not wrong, and no one can say that justice and kindness are wrong. Coincidentally, the original owner was a malicious person. It wasn't until she became the Liang Chenyue in the book that she probably couldn't experience the feeling of empathy. The original owner trusted him, which led to his murder. There is a feeling of being betrayed. So since then, she no longer feels sorry and likes the role of Zhao Yuan. Empress. Zhao Yuan lowered his head and had no complaints about the scolding. If you're not happy, please just vent your anger on me, but don't be impulsive. It seems like you're telling a very new joke. Liang Chenyue pulled back her thoughts and smiled at him with a smile. Only those who have no ability make choices, and this palace has to do everything. After she finished speaking, she gave Zhao Yuan a kick and kicked him to the ground, laughing and running around in the palace. Indeed, impulse is a devil. Not being a person is satisfying. Happy ran a few steps in a daze, and Liang Chenyue suddenly stopped. Empress. Empress. Slow down. Slow down. Two palace maids, Xiang and Gru, chased after them with a group of palace attendants, gasping for breath. Shoo! Liang Chenyue suddenly stood up her fingers and silenced them. Everyone was taken aback when Liang Chenyue waved her hand and said, "Someone, go to this palace and trick the guy standing at the entrance to the corner over there." A young eunuch volunteered and went confidently. "Go to someone else and find a burlap bag for our palace." Everyone was full of doubts, but under the tyranny of the noble concubine, no one dared to ask for the reason. Seeing that everything was ready, Liang Chenyue grabbed a sack and a rolling pin, and covered the deceiver with a fierce hammer. In this book, the layout of the imperial palace is not written according to common sense. Maybe it is to facilitate the intersection and conflict between Bai Jiaojiao and the male supporting role. In the harem, the concubines also have the opportunity to meet foreign ministers. The young man in front of him, covered in a linen bag and stomped on the ground by Liang Chenyue with a rolling pin, was the second male character in the book. Xiao. Your horse's dog thing. I grass your ancestors for 18 generations. Liang Chenyue's rolling pin struck with a majestic aura, leaving no outsiders around. She cursed fiercely, "Die for me. I love to find arrow shields so much, you can lock them up. Jingta's mother is disgusting. She's pretending to be infatuated with Nemabai. It's despicable to have fewer things from the dog day." She took a deep breath and kicked the person under her feet hard. Sooner or later, she will sell this despicable man into the Nanfeng pavilion. After finishing the fight, she threw away the crime tool and took advantage of Xiao's lack of time to react and ran away with the palace maid. There is a reason why Liang Chenyue is so angry. Although this is the 5th time she has restarted, to be honest, she has always found an opportunity to beat up Xiao every time she has restarted. Or several meals. Even if she didn't become a malicious supporting actress, she really felt outrageous. After all, hypocrisy is more disgusting than bad. Originally, in this sadistic love affair, there was no female partner for anything. The male lead and female lead, male 2 or 3, grew up together as childhood sweethearts. The male lead liked the female lead, and the female lead liked the male too. Unfortunately, when the female lead confessed to the male lead, the male lead maliciously pointed out that he was his crush. Unfortunately, the male lead also witnessed everything. Unfortunately, both the male lead and the female lead have real power in their families. Unfortunately, after the female lead was rejected, she went to the male lead to complain about her pain and let the male lead help them. Unfortunately, the male protagonist does not want his courtiers to form a strong alliance. And I can't stand the fact that the male lead has a liking for the female lead. I can't accept that the female lead doesn't like me at all. The male protagonist made up his mind, firstly, to prevent the alliance of powerful officials, 2. Give the male lead a severe blow in retaliation for taking away the female lead's heart, 3. Stimulate the female lead. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. I have arranged a marriage with her for you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. I have arranged a marriage with her for you. Thank you for inviting me. The biggest tool person in this plan is the original owner, and of course, she is now. Liang Chenyue pondered deeply and finally confirmed that the author must have relied on his defense in his mind. Otherwise, where could it be written that this kind of three-person sadistic love dragged a fourth person into the water? What's the difference between this and suddenly kicking a stranger dog from the roadside into a ditch while walking? What's wrong with fixing hooks? What's wrong with the female lead? I was forced to enter the game and endure hardship like this. Although it was very cliché, after the plan was formulated, Xiao Jingrong successfully captured the heart of the female supporting character by appearing in the palace, and made her willingly go to the palace to be crazy about him, arrogant and domineering about him, and pressure the family to make Xiao Jingrong crown her as a noble consort. Entering the palace was planned by the male protagonist, but after the plan went smoothly, he disliked the vicious female companion. The matter was initiated by others, and the pot of sin is carried by the female partner. Everyone ignored one point because the female supporting character was bad. A shield is not a necessity to refuse someone's confession. The male is mainly in power and wants to control the court. Ignoring his attitude of being both important and upright, she can barely understand the inclusion of the daughter of a powerful minister in the harem. Does the second male lead have to block the arrow again to reject the female lead? Or would a woman with no significant status die? She was really angry watching this plot. No matter how bad the supporting actress is, if she doesn't enter the palace, she can still live a better life than a princess. Since falling in love with the male lead, anything can always be the fault of the female lead, and everything that starts with her must end with her. Indeed, even though she is more like a daughter than the female protagonist, the author cannot help but care more about her son. Angry. Next time, she will beat Xiao up again. If it weren't for this dog pulling the original owner as a shield, she wouldn't have been in the palace every time she restarted. Isn't the world outside the palace more free and happy? Empress. Knowing too much can lead to premature death, dearing Xiang. I hope you live a long life of 100 years. Liang Chenyue smiled and restrained her servant's words. She was in a good mood this time. After all, the female lead in the front was crying and blaming herself, while in the back she caught the culprit and beat him up. I don't understand. At least the female protagonist is also the daughter of the Grand Tutor. Although the Grand Tutor has no real power, she is also from a noble family. How could she teach her to be like this, where 3 sticks cannot make a fart? What's wrong with confessing? What is the relationship between a female partner entering the palace and her? But it's the second male general, a young and promising general. Can he not understand the officialdom? Can he not know the benefits of a strong alliance? After committing a crime, the female protagonist became disheartened and was forced to stay in the palace by the male protagonist to cultivate feelings. At this moment, he regretted it again and began to enter the palace to find ways to reminisce with the female protagonist. Talk to him like a hammer, just go back home for 10.5 days and save her dirty eyes. Upon reflection, Xiao Jingrong was paranoid and domineering, yet stubbornly refused to give anyone a chance to defend himself. When Bai Jiao was weak and powerless, she sometimes had no thoughts and wavered. Xiao insisted on being infatuated, regretting her character and causing harm to others and herself. Watching them one by one is annoying, it's just a matter of pressure. Bitch! What have you done to Jiao? A thunderous voice came from the door, and Liang Chenyue's eyes were cluttered with paper filled with words. Upon hearing the words, she didn't even lift her eyelids and replied, I have arranged for you to marry her. The experience is very good. The enraged person choked on a word and shook their hands for a while, their crimson eyes unable to say a word. Xiao Jingrong's brain was left blank by her words, and his aura was instantly shattered. He was stunned for a long time before angrily slapping the table hard. Bitch, what did you just say? The information that Liang Chenyue needed was slapped by Xiao Jingrong in her hand. Her eyebrows furrowed slightly, and she was beaten in Shoan Palace. Can this be blamed on her head? Looking up as if looking at a fool, he said, Xiang, the imperial physician, our emperor has problems with his eyes and ears. As soon as he finished speaking, he received another slap from Xiao Jingrong on the table. He probably didn't dare to really attack Liang Chenyue, but his anger remained strong. I have already given you what you want, why do you still treat Jiao like that? How fierce. I'm going to tell my dad. Liang Chen was proud on the moon, speaking extremely aggrieved words, but he was extremely proud. What can Xiao Jingrong do now? He also dared to play tricks on women. The original protagonist's setting in the text was so cunning and malicious, but unfortunately, it was missed by Xiao Jingrong's startled glance for life. Like many malicious female supporting characters in the text, he was clearly dragging to death, and his family background was so amazing that he loved to pretend in front of the male protagonist. On the one hand, the male protagonist is jealous of the female protagonist, and on the other hand, he is extremely afraid that the exposure of the situation will make the male protagonist dislike him. Let's just say, this is a great wisdom. His mother it. Since all the bad guys have been fooled, wouldn't it be good to kill what you can't get? Is it inappropriate for the male lead to intentionally show up and misunderstand the female support, leading to feelings, and then tell the original lead that he already has someone he likes? Liang Chenyue felt nauseous in her heart. She couldn't tolerate this shitty plot for a moment. If there was a chance, Gao Shi would also beat the author in a sack. With her legs crossed, she smiled brightly at Xiao Jingrong and said, Is there anything else the emperor wants to tell me? Obviously, Xiao Jingrong found it difficult to accept Liang Chenyue's earth-shattering changes, and his hatred towards her gradually reached a new height. No matter what you do, you will never be able to compare to a bright finger. Don't play these tricks, and don't think about things you shouldn't touch. If this statement is based on the fact that the female lead likes the male lead, it must have a great killing power. After meeting the male lead for the first time, the female lead fell completely in love with him and begged her father to help her enter the palace. While Liang's father put pressure on the male lead in the previous court, the female lead also realized that the male lead had a female lead in his heart since childhood. Therefore, jealous of her, she poisoned the female lead, and Liang's father also tripped her father in the previous court. In order to ensure the safety of the female protagonist and his daughter, the male protagonist promised to give her a noble concubine. Of course, if the premise is not that the male lead intends to let the female members of the Liang family enter the palace to support and kill the Liang family and collect evidence, then this pot is entirely for the female supporting party. Similar words could be heard in Liang Chenyue's ears. She was willing to describe the male lead as a shameless person, with a naive and innocent curve on her lips. If you have feces in your mind, don't spray feces all over your mouth here. You don't have a few big skills, but you speak harshly. If you don't know how to do it, you might think that in this world, you can wield a sword for 100 or 8,000 miles in a second, pulling your mother to force you. You're reckless. Oh my, Bai Mei's face doesn't look red enough to me. Liang Chenyue suddenly changed to a face full of innocent people, her voice mixed and mixed. Your Majesty, do you think Bai Taifu works very hard on his days? I thought to myself, asking my father to help him share the burden. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. My concubine loves to play with a small character. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. My concubine loves to play with a small character. Xiao Jingrong was almost speechless with anger, gritting his teeth and glaring angrily at Liang Chenyue. The emperor's self-esteem had never been provoked like this before. He raised his hand and pointed at the person again and again, and the next moment, he was slapped back by Liang Chenyue. Liang Chenyue curved her eyes and smiled. My concubine has a bad temper. It's inevitable that she likes to be petty. Please bear with me, Emperor. Xiao Jingrong was almost trying his best to endure the urge to hit someone, his eyes fixed on Liang Chenyue as if he was about to spew out fire. Staring at my concubine all the time, have you changed your liking to my concubine instead of my younger sister Bai? Her smile was full of confidence. Xiao Jingrong immediately withdrew his gaze, but then shortened his aura and said fiercely in his tone, you don't deserve it. After speaking, she walked away with anger, but Liang Chenyue couldn't help but burst out laughing, with an incompetent and furious expression that she didn't know who to show it to. I really looked down. Although Bai Jiaojiao was heartbroken after being rejected by the second male lead and wanted to find a place to be clean, Xiao Jingrong left her in the palace without saying a word, trying to make the female lead change her environment and forget about the second male lead to like herself. Almost everyone knows that Xiao Jingrong liked Bai Jiaojiao since childhood. Leaving Bai Jiaojiao in the palace like this is not like throwing a piece of meat into a wolf's den. In the eyes of those women in the harem who admire the emperor, Bai Jiaojiao, a woman who does not love the emperor but is loved by the emperor, is simply ignorant. Being envied by everyone in the harem is a definite thing. Moreover, in terms of setting, the harem is full of villains, and the Empress Dowager is jealous of her to make the emperor like her. The Empress Dowager hates the emperor for not going to the harem for her. When the two are combined, the Empress Dowager ignores and doesn't ask. Are the people below trying to kill Bai Jiaojiao? But all of this came to Xiao Jingrong's mouth. Leaving someone in the palace was to protect her at all times, and not forcefully accepting Bai Jiaojiao was a sign of respect for her. Please tidy up the ground quickly. Liang Chenyue glanced at the servants and came to a conclusion after recalling the plot. Xiao Jingrong's reply was that she sprayed a little chocolate essence. He didn't even want to wrap himself in a layer of chocolate crust. Of course, everyone else is not much better either. There is no need for Bai Jiaojiao to hide from Xia Yuqiu in the palace. She can also confide in servants or elders about the grievances of being rejected. Anyway, there is no need to confide in Xiao Jingrong. Despite suffering all the grievances in the palace, she dared not bring up the matter, and her mind only focused on why she was rejected by everyone for not doing anything wrong. In fact, as long as you think outside of this mindset, there is no need to talk to Xiao Jingrong. You should go to the Empress Dowager and kowtow and say that you want to leave the palace. The Empress Dowager is eager to beat the gong and drum to send her home. After all, as long as Bai Jiaojiao is in the palace for a day, Xiao Jingrong will not touch anyone, and there will be no prince in this palace. On the paper sorted out by the palace officials from the ground, detailed information about every concubine in the harem was written. Liang Chenyue couldn't help but sigh, there's not a decent one. She wished she could slap her two big mouths. Last time, which one of her tendons went wrong and she actually wanted to save this love brain full of harem. What a shame. Grinding ink. She shouted to Ingru, took a brush from the pen holder, and prepared a rice paper as long as a scroll on the table. After taking the ink, she lightly drew the brush, with the long line straight. She divided the white paper into several equal parts, marked the order, and filled in the palace and name positions one by one according to the sorted information of the harem. The table was only completed when it was written to the west of the sun. Except for her, everyone's name in the harem is included. Alright, Liang Chenyue rubbed her wrist. On the white paper, Xiao's handwriting meticulously wrote the schedule. She waved her hand and said, frame it up and show it to the Empress Dowager. Tell her there's no problem and she can start tomorrow. The servant looked at this table with a puzzled expression, completely unaware of its meaning, but no one dared to ask. After tirelessly completing the matter, he received a positive response from the Empress Dowager. Does Empress really have a way to solve it? The confidant beside the Empress Dowager still expressed her doubts. Liang Chenyue smiled and answered somewhat off-topic, there's a saying that goes well. Some places don't have roads, but after walking a lot, they become roads. She hasn't learned anything else in these years, so she's forced to learn this skill very well from various male leads or villains. Grandma, rest assured to go back and report. Since this palace dares to speak up, it will definitely satisfy the Empress Dowager. She skillfully opened the system store, and on the panel that was only visible to her, the nauseating system was no longer there, leaving only some basic functions alone. The taskbar, like the system, is empty, so naturally, the system is gone. Who can post tasks to her? The other two are what she can use now. One is to search for which book the current small world belongs to, and show her the main plot and original content. The other is a system store that she has hardly used before, and the items inside are so expensive that almost any prop would cost her points earned from a small world. Now, compared to her points, these props appear quite cheap. That night, Xiao Jingrong was forced by the Empress Dowager to come to the Kunlun Palace of Liang Chenyue. I won't spoil you. Before the words of disgust could be finished, Liang Chenyue strode towards the meteor and burned his face with small props, then hooked her finger towards the person behind the screen. After the screen, the woman's face turned crimson, and a thin layer of gauze hung on her slender lotus arms, showing a slight hesitation. Shy hammer, it's not like this when you're jealous of others. Liang Chenyue rudely slapped her on the back and patted her over. You're so silly, don't talk nonsense. Thank you very much, madam. Unreasonable ultimately thanked Liang Chenyue and then helped Xiao Jingrong, who could no longer find the north, to bed. Liang Chenyue shrugged her shoulders, turned her head, and led her servants to close the door of the dormitory. She carried a box of midnight snacks and went to the side hall to enjoy the nightlife. Empress, the emperor finally came. Why did you let Yun Maren seize this opportunity? Xiang didn't understand. Her own master clearly admired the emperor so much, but why did she push out her favor when the emperor finally came? Liang Chenyue took a breath and placed the midnight snack on the table. With one hand on her waist and the other on Xiang's shoulder, she smiled and said, Xiang, you have 100 years of life. You need to be smarter in your brain, understand? Understood. Xiang immediately shut up, but if you want to understand, she doesn't understand, she really doesn't understand. The vast Kunlun Palace is specially granted to female attendants, who are only allowed to live alone. The dormitory is already dirty, which Liang Chenyue dislikes. Therefore, today she has someone tidy up the side hall well. Although it is a bit small, she can have whatever she wants. The Empress can only grit her teeth and give her everything she wants under the Empress Dowager's authority. A big house is good, isn't it? You can sleep wherever you want. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Living Dragon and Tiger Xiao Jingrong. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Living Dragon and Tiger Xiao Jingrong. The next morning, Xiao Jingrong woke up in the sleeping hall of Kunlun Palace, and then loud applause came from all directions. Liang Chenyue stood among the palace people, watching Xiao Jingrong stand up in shock from the bed until his face smelled. It only took a moment, and he said in a very sincere and loud voice, Congratulations, Emperor. You are finally a complete man now. Liang Chenyue, what have you done to me? Xiao Jingrong was completely bewildered at the moment. He vaguely remembered something and his face turned black and frightening. What are you all doing in a daze? Why don't you take care of the emperor's grooming? What should we do if we delay going to court? Liang Chenyue directly ordered and took a few steps forward to meet Xiao Jingrong's gaze, which was about to eat her. She smiled and said, Your Majesty, do you want to delay going to court for this trivial matter? The emperor is not diligent in politics, where can the old officials and ministers sit still? Accusing him of being incompetent is like jumping out of his mouth. Xiao Jingrong's eyes were cold, with a hint of gritting her teeth. She was afraid that she would have already unloaded 8 pieces of her body, but she still restrained herself openly. She had a pale face and was served by palace attendants to wash up. As for Unreasonable, who was sleeping last night, she was currently in a remote area of the main hall, drinking the pregnancy medicine that had just been delivered this morning. As soon as Xiao Jingrong got up from the bed, Liang Chenyue couldn't wait to pick up the yuan handkerchief from the bed. There were red marks on it, which could well prove what happened last night. For a moment, Liang Chenyue thought to herself, how terrifying ancient times were. In her teens, she was far from fully developed. Falling red was a protective presence for her body, but it was ridiculous and could only be used as proof of chastity. After a moment's thought, she smiled and showed her handkerchief to Xiao Jingrong, saying, Your Majesty, you're great. Let's keep working hard tonight. It doesn't matter, this is just a full defense novel. Xiao Jingrong gritted his teeth and said, Wait for me. What, you want 5 at night? Liang Chenyue pretended to be deaf and covered her mouth with a surprised expression. You're really lively. Liang Chenyue. Go, go, go. She grabbed the yuan handkerchief and ran away without giving Xiao Jingrong a chance to vent her anger. More importantly, the previous court could not delay it, otherwise the ministers of the previous court would stir up trouble, and her experimental plan would not be able to continue. Unreasonable was just the first one. Liang Chenyue led her people all the way to the Shoan Palace to find the Empress Dowager. According to the schedule she had given the Empress Dowager before, all the women in the harem would take turns to participate in the battle. The order on the schedule was arranged according to everyone's monthly schedule. Since all the members of the harem were romantic minds that couldn't be pulled back by 10 cows, it was better to lock them together. Coincidentally, she also wanted to know what kind of surprise Xiao Jingrong, who gave birth to 9 sons with Bai Jiao at the end of the novel, would have if given a chance to so widely. Anyway, in terms of the original ending, Liang Chenyue feels that the author really loves having a baby boy and has not even considered having a child. The probability of having a boy or a girl should be half and half. I don't know if this can give birth to a girl. Okay. The Empress Dowager looked at Yuanpa, and the happy people seemed 10 years younger. It seemed that they really wanted a grandson. This happiness, along with Bai Jiao, who had been bullied and wronged in the Shoan Palace, was temporarily let go. At this moment, Bai Jiao looked like a last-rate palace maid, with some lingering marks on her face, which were still from last time. Xiao Jingrong stood out for her once, and with the good news of Unreasonable's successful bedtime, Bai Jiao's days on big dates have been much better recently. Congratulations to Auntie. The Empress said sourly, her back teeth tightly clenched together, and her smile appeared very false. The Empress Dowager glanced at her and didn't argue with her for the time being. The yuan handkerchief was taken down by the servants, and the Empress Dowager was very pleased as she took Liang Chenyue's hand and said, You are still a talented child. The Emperor is stubborn, and the many attempts made by the AI family have not been effective. But as soon as you come, it will be resolved. Whether the AI family can embrace the imperial grandson as soon as possible depends entirely on you. Whatever the Empress Dowager says, it's what I should do. Liang Chenyue's eyebrows and eyes curved. After all, it's a beautiful thing to see Xiao Jingrong wake up with a dark face every day. She's too happy to see Xiao Jingrong, this arrogant male protagonist, trying to kill her every day but unable to do so. As he spoke, he obediently leaned against the Empress Dowager and said, "Wait a few more months, there will definitely be a good news coming out of this harem." Okay. The Empress Dowager's eyes curved into a slit, her face rosy, and she kept saying good. Liang Chenyue took advantage of this opportunity and begged the Empress Dowager for many things she wanted. The Empress Dowager looked on and her mouth was sour and her eyes were hot, but the Empress Dowager agreed to everything. Now that the old lady was being coaxed happily, her mind was full of her great-grandson. What else was there? Liang Chenyue chuckled at the Empress. After retiring one after another with the Empress, she still humbly leaned forward and said, "Madam, your aunt is really kind. She loves me so much." The Empress's eyes widened, and she couldn't resist making a move. It was the palace maids beside her who were desperately pressing down to prevent her from getting angry on the spot. "Bitch, what kind of magic did you use?" Liang Chenyue raised her eyebrows and said, "Do you want to learn?" This palace disdained such despicable methods. The Empress stared with blood visible in her eyes, and her gritted teeth were completely detached from her dignified and luxurious attire. "What do you ask if you don't learn?" One sentence choked the Empress's words in her throat, and she couldn't help but vomit. In anger, she gritted her teeth and shouted, stomping her feet fiercely in anger. The sharp voice was so annoying that it made people listen. Liang Chenyue didn't care. No matter how others heard her voice, she felt comfortable listening to it. With the support of 2 palace maids, she walked towards her own palace. "Go to Linhua Palace and inform Dai Kairen to prepare to come to Kunluan Palace." "I just didn't wait for Dai Kairen, but I waited for Bai Jiaojiao first." Liang Chenyue. It's really difficult for her to show any good expression towards Bai Jiaojiao. There's no other reason, it's just that I feel like I've spent 3 years preaching, giving advice, and pouring out all my resources to help. Even a pile of shit should have been enlightened by her, but Bai Jiaojiao still remains motionless and steadfast like a rock. My heart is tired, my family. At first glance, upon seeing Liang Chenyue's lifeless face, her white and bright eyes turned red, her figure shrank, but she spoke up as if she had gathered the courage. "Sister, you doesn't welcome me. I'm sorry, why don't I just leave first?" "Don't leave." Liang Chenyue took a deep breath and tried to endure her desire to use foul language. She pointed to the door and said, "You run for this palace, hurry." Compared to Bai Jiaojiao's soft and tender voice, people in this world spoke with a sharp expression that made them extremely angry. Bai Jiaojiao was immediately frightened and her eyes were filled with tears, trying to suppress it from falling out. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Such a beautiful person really wants to meet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Such a beautiful person really wants to meet. I'm sorry, sister, you. Bai Jiaojiao hesitated for a moment, as if she had made up her mind to stay again. I just came to apologize to you. It's all because of me. It's all because I told the emperor that brother Yuchio likes you, otherwise you wouldn't have entered the palace. See, she said that the female lead is the most adept at avoiding harm and profit throughout the entire text. To be calm, Xia Yuchio is the one who uses the female supporting character as a shield, while Xiao Jingrong is the one who fears the great fortune of the female supporting character. Not to mention that Bai Jiaojiao's confession of Xia Yuchio has been watched by Xiao Jingrong throughout the entire process, but the act of Bai Jiaojiao pouring out bitterness and revealing the matter is far from the excessive behavior of those 2 lower-ranking men. But whether it's Xiao Jingrong or Xia Yuchio, who is feeling guilty? Who feels guilty? Who thinks they're doing something wrong? Isn't it ridiculous? On the contrary, Bai Jiaojiao became the most guilty one. She still felt that she should fulfill her Yuchio brother's wishes. She believed that the person who was liked by her Yuchio brother would also feel happy about it. Little did she know that the supporting actress had already fallen in love with Xiao Jingrong and knew that Xiao Jingrong liked Bai Jiaojiao. If she didn't make it clear and speculate further, it would always make people angry. And the feuds created by men, women have caused a huge uproar. You don't have the ability to persuade the emperor to take back his life. What's the difference between saying these things and intentionally poking people's hearts in this palace? Liang Chenyue thought it was funny. You know that this palace likes to slap people's mouths recently, so you came to sign up. If that's the case, then it's not impossible. Bai Jiaojiao's face looked softer and more glutinous than Ning Jiayu's, truly deserving of the title of the abusive female protagonist. No, that's not what I meant. Bai Jiaojiao shook her head, her face flushed with anxiety. The matter has become a foregone conclusion. I apologize to my sister and dare not pray for her forgiveness. It's just that. I just heard a while ago that Brother Yuchio was inexplicably beaten in the palace and I'm afraid he won't come to bed for 10.5 days, so I wanted to say. In Bai Jiaojiao's eyes, Xia Yuchio and Liang Chenyue were the unfortunate mandarin ducks that she had accidentally separated. Since she couldn't let them be together, at least inform each other of their situation so that they could all feel at ease. I've been beaten. Liang Chenyue nodded thoughtfully, this guy who hit people. Bai Jiaojiao was about to feel relieved, and just as she was about to say that she could definitely find this person, she was intercepted by Liang Chenyue and opened her mouth. Definitely beautiful, generous, ice and snow smart, loved by everyone. Bright eyes, white teeth, Zhong Lingyu, graceful and graceful. Jade is naturally beautiful, with a charming smile and a refined demeanor. Gentle and charming, with beautiful and picturesque features. Natural beauty is graceful, elegant and pure, perfect and beautiful, charming and charming. Intelligent, outstanding, exquisite, transparent, and charming, with an unparalleled independence, national beauty, heavenly fragrance, and unparalleled charm. Perfect and flawless demeanor like orchids. She looked admiring, clasped her hands together, and yearned immensely, I really want to meet such a beautiful person. Bai Jiaojiao. Sister, aren't you sad? She asked cautiously. I'm sad. Liang Chenyue said with a face that didn't turn red and a heart that didn't jump. I feel sad because I can't see that beautiful, generous, intelligent, and perfect person on my side. In fact, Liang Chenyue has another question that she really can't figure out. Is there really someone in this world who loves brain teasers so much? Has her attitude, expression, and words been clear enough for any restart? Why do two people think she's pretending not to like it and thinking she's angry? What's there to be angry about with Baba? When she's constipated, she won't say to Baba. You can't get angry, can you? What a grinding little fairy. There was no intention of feeling sad for Xia Yuchio, and now Bai Jiaojiao was at a loss. However, a dramatic and ordinary scene happened in this world. What are you doing? Stay away from Jiaojiao. This kind of drama is really common. Whenever a female supporting character bullies the female lead, it's always the male lead who takes the lead, and Liang Chenyue is getting tired of it. No. Liang Chenyue took the lead and pulled the person into her arms before Xiao Jingrong met Bai Jiaojiao. Watching Xiao Jingrong's angry expression, she immediately reached out to pick up Bai Jiaojiao's face and kissed her cheek. Oh, her goodness, she's a sweet and soft female protagonist of sadistic literature. The experience is really amazing. Bai Jiaojiao is foolish. Xiao Jingrong was angry. Liang Chenyue was overjoyed. Hee, you're so happy. Liang Chenyue declared her sovereignty and hugged Bai Jiaojiao, who was delicate and soft, with innocent eyes. Why does the emperor look at me like this? I'm just getting close to Bai Mimi. Looking at Xiao Jingrong, Liang Chenyue's eyes were full of provocation. This is your goddess of white moonlight, can't you kiss her, right? Hey. She kissed me. You're so angry. Bitch. Let go of Jiaojiao. Xiao Jingrong saw her temples bulging with veins, and her anger was indescribable. I've seen how you harm Jiaojiao before, don't try any tricks. Silent, it wasn't she who brought Bai Jiao here. The more she let go, the more she refused to let go. On the contrary, she gave a kiss on her fair face. A person weighing 100 pounds had a bone reaction of 200 pounds, and Xiao Jingrong was so angry that he almost had smoke in his eyes. Miss Bai, take a look at the emperor. Where did I bully you in this palace? Liang Chenyue leaned her head against Bai Jiao, her voice pretentious and capable of strangling people. The emperor is so terrifying, unlike me, I only know how to kiss Miss Bai. Xiao Jingrong was extremely angry and wanted to start pulling Liang Chenyue away. Bai Jiao's face turned slightly red and she timidly said, Brother Jingrong, you misunderstood. Sister, you didn't bully me. I came to find her for something. How can this possibly eliminate Xiao Jingrong's disgust towards Liang Chenyue? He reached out and grabbed Bai Jiao's slender wrist in dissatisfaction, pulling the person to his side with anger in his voice. I have said more than once, you should stay away from her. Have you forgotten your previous experience? Seeing Bai Jiao's back facing her, Liang Chenyue made a face at Xiao Jingrong, gestured with a big middle finger, and silently said in her mouth, stinky idiot. Xiao Jingrong stared and gritted his teeth, causing Bai Jiao to doubt and turn around. Liang Chenyue immediately changed her aggrieved expression and said, Sister Bai has already told me that I did not bully her. Although she dislikes everyone in this book, women are often bitter, and although she cannot completely ignore them, at least in situations where men are present, she definitely does not think twice about who should be made more unhappy. Xiao Jingrong's gaze seemed to be cannibalistic. He coldly shook his sleeves and pulled Bai Jiao away, all the way to the outside of the palace. Bai Jiao's wrist hurt from being pinched, and he couldn't help but let out a soft cry, which made Xiao Jingrong let go of her. I'm not good, Xiao Jingrong felt guilty in his rare eyes. He gently pulled up Bai Jiao's wrist and said, But did it hurt you? Bai Jiao gently shook her head. Seeing this, Xiao Jingrong felt relieved and sighed as he looked at Bai Jiao, don't come to Kunlun Palace again in the future. End of this chapter.